to the ranch. But none of us are unique, and I understand that as much as anyone, as hard as I try to be that way. But the uniqueness about us is that our own spiritual connectiveness to the universe. How can we teach our brothers and sisters who listen to this show so that they can teach those who don't how to have this kind of connectiveness? Through all these teachings and all these studies you've had with everyone, how can we teach them a way to make this connection for them instead of just listening to it?
I think the best way is to understand the true nature of humanity, which is that we are interdimensional beings, and we exist on a vibrational continuum. We're not just a physical body and a personality. We're a spirit that has many, many different aspects to it, or dimensions to it. And once we have that understanding, then we need to understand how to access those higher levels, or that expanded awareness or consciousness. And there's many techniques to do that.
Can you tell us a few specific ones when we come back from this break?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to take a quick 1-minute commercial. Just a note, too, for people. I know the phones are going a bit nuts here for people booking seats for the Shamanic Journey event coming up. And just before the break, James, you were about to tell us how we can all establish some kind of connection. Just before we get into that, we had a caller send in a question. She wanted to know if you had any alien visitors. I know you don't like the word alien, so extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial visitors showing up in long brown robes. Do you actually see them?
In long brown robes. I've seen them in various other garments. I've seen them in robes, but not. I haven't seen any in long brown robes yet.
But you do actually get to see.
What was that?
Raelians.
I've heard
people who are cloning children.
Yeah, I've heard of the group.
Okay, so you haven't had any French-speaking Raelians come?
No.
All right, good.
Okay, good thing. Okay, moving on. So, but you do actually get to see them.
I've had that opportunity. I've had some face-to-face contacts with 4 different groups.
Are they all like human-looking, or do you get the typical sort of large eye, gray thing, or whatever, the standard alien?
I really don't like that group. I hate to say it, but I try to stay away from that group because they don't line up properly with me on the consciousness that I focus more on the love vibration, or the higher consciousness and energy, and a lot of those groups are very, very mental. They're very powerful mentally, and that is one of their problems, is that they bred emotions out of their race, and they're dying because love is the life force that holds everything together. It's the emotion. And
are these some of the groups that the American scientists are working with, or?
Yes,
Okay.
They did a trade, for genetics, technology for genetics, and actually this group is trying to breed emotions back into their race because they know there's a shift happening, and without love and compassion and the higher consciousness, you can't make this shift.
They'll never make the quantum leap.
Exactly, and these groups know that, and they're trying to. They know they made a very serious mistake in the past, and they're trying to through hybrids, breed emotions back into their race.
And let me ask you something. Do you believe, because we still want to teach our people how, but I have a question. Do you believe that what is happening and dealing with what we are now looking at as the United States and a couple of the other countries going to war, do you believe that this is the end product of a last desperate attempt of a group of people who are connected with these aliens, and this is their last desperate attempt to hold on, knowing the same thing that you just said, that this conscious transition from the 4th, 5th plane into the 9th dimension is going to occur, and they know that this is going to occur, and this is their last attempt to try to control? Does this come across from the extraterrestrial side?
It's more than that. I would say there's some very unconscious people here that are doing everything they can to hold the frequencies down here, and and keep the fear and the separation game going and all the other nonsense. And it's not
a lot of the news media wouldn't be selling commercial time if we weren't going to war. But I've heard from people, and in my own dealings with the mental level, Because I understand there are terrestrial beings, because I've encountered them in journeys from this side to what we call the other side of the heavenly plane. And I've come across this kind of information in those transitions, is why I was asking. So what do you think that because the more people who become aware, I can listen to the kindness and the loving display in your voice. We all need to have a couple of interterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, extraterrestrial, or just personal connections with our neighbors and our friends. Give us one or two techniques that we could begin to explore so that we ourselves can have this kind of transcommunication.
One of the things that I've actually written 2 books. One is called Reunion with Source, and in that book it has all of these techniques on how to do that. But some of them are Tibetan techniques, and they're meditations that we use to... Can
we get these books on your website, or do we get them off
you can get them through the website,
Amazon?
Or they're distributed through Ingram's, is one of the biggest distributors.
Okay.
Where do we...
What's the name again?
One's called Reunion with Source, and the second book is called Becoming Gods 2. And don't let the title scare you, but it's the second one talks about where you become one with the one consciousness, that encompasses all consciousness on all planes and all dimensions throughout the universe.
So everybody get these books, please.
So what's the very beginning? What's sort of like connecting with alien species 101? Where do you start?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing people need to do is realize that just because you're dead doesn't mean you're enlightened. And there are some beings out there you don't want to connect with, just like there's some people on Earth you don't want to connect with. And there's techniques in the book that actually teach you how to heal the unseen negative influences and move them out of your space. And that's very important to know. The greatest thing I've seen is that the highest frequency thoughts are love and joy and bliss and compassion and service. That's what you want to focus on. One of the Tibetan lamas I studied with, I loved it. He said the reason there's so few enlightened beings on this planet right now is because it's so damn simple. And he said you just focus on love and joy and bliss until you become it. But when you reach a certain level of consciousness, they'll actually find you. Your frequency will draw them to you.
So that's your explanation for why that you are drawn to them and they're drawn to you?
Exactly. I reached a certain level of consciousness to where I was ready for contact, because what I've seen, especially up this area, there's a 100-year history of UFO activity in this area, and all kinds of sightings and contacts. But when you look at the records, every time people had a contact, they ran. Whenever they saw the ship or they saw the entity, they turn around and ran.
Well, this is the thing. This is why, I was saying we're covering the quote-unquote alien thing, the news for the soul way, because this is not about going into fear. It's not about freaking out or getting spooky. It's about dealing with it from, a more enlightened place. And that's what you're talking about.
You have to conquer your fears and conquer judgment. And when you get beyond that, the rest of the universe just opens up. I think that's one of the reasons why all these physicists I'm working with, they won't talk to anybody else, but they just recognize a certain level of honesty and integrity, and they want to tell their story, but they know I'm not going to sell them out or create problems for them, and so that's why they come and they just pretty much tell me everything. But,
well, is it possible to not put themselves in a place to sell them out, but they could write their story and you could put it on your website and we could hyperlink to News for the Soul so that people can come and listen to their perspectives, so that they can watch the daily rantings and ravings we're hearing in the news media, but also have an American scientist who physicist who worked in this, to help understand like where fiber optics came from and the reverse engineering of so much of the modern day products and the things that we use every day: cell phones, fiber optics, high speed acceleration.
Yeah, all that, even the computer chip. We wouldn't even have the computer